Welcome to Beyond the Clef. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined by Rachel Horvitz from Hill Country Middle School Orchestra. Thanks for coming on the program. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're live here at the Summer 2017 convention when we're filming this, and we're so happy that Director's Choice has dedicated a part of their booth to let us come in and get to hear some really great people talk about music.
Thank you.
So, you're at Hill Country Middle School and you're feeding Westlake High School, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the Austin area.
Yes.
Yeah, and we were talking on the phone about kind of the overall vision for your program, and everything we've been talking about with all these great guests today has been the overall big picture stuff. Okay, so talk a little bit about your vision for your program and what you like to do.
I think a lot of directors, they come into a program and they might have a very specific goal, as in maybe I need more numbers, or I need the music literature to be, raise the level of the literature. I think overall the vision would be creating, a music program it's competitive, as in we participate in region and UIL and solo and ensemble. We're part of that community in a competitive fashion. But it's a positive, and it's more than that. It's more than just showing up to the concerts. It's, as a music educator, you're getting kids hooked into music, something that they will hopefully take not only through high school but also through their life, and they will establish friendships that will help guide them and kind of anchor them throughout their school experiences and beyond.
Okay, well now take me more into these smaller level, and let's go through a couple of categories.
Sure.
And give me how you incorporate that vision into these things. So talk about programming, for instance.
Programming. Basically, program music that you just can't wait to teach.
That's a great way to think of it.
And that's tricky for an earlier, a younger teacher, or a teacher who just hasn't been up in front of a group with a bunch of different scores. So early on, I definitely, and I still do, took advice from my colleagues. Hey, what do you like to program? Oh, I like to program, classical arrangement. And then I talk to other colleagues who say, I'm really more of an original composition piece type of person. And hearing all the different perspectives and what they like about certain things, and being okay with learning and not trying to get it perfect right away. I can certainly remember UIL's seasonal concerts where I made choices that I would have done it differently looking back. So, but being reflective enough to learn about that and not maybe just putting it on the kids, being introspective about it and learning from your programming and what is really, not only, it's pretty obvious when you're a music ensemble director what's successful. Obviously the kids are very proud of their musical product, but there's a good feeling, and they're excited to play it, and they're excited to have performed it. So it's good to say, okay, that worked. What are some other things that I can do in that vein? And really just devoting the time to sitting down and listening. Like, for example, when I organize my office, oftentimes I'll just put in a CD compilation from one of the publication companies and have that on, just so I can always be listening to music, or really carving out time to look at scores, carving out time to compare that to what I've done in the past and what I might kind of think outside the box and do something different.
Now, tell me what you're thinking when you're programming for a concert. Are you programming for multiple concerts horizontally throughout the year? Are you programming, this is my goal, this is everything, I like this piece, what else would fit with that? What are you thinking there?
Well, we have our seasonal concerts, and we have our region, or our UIL rather, and so those are the big highlights of what we're kind of working towards, right, as far as that culmination of all the things that we've worked on through the year and also the years before. So I have those, and of course we have lists that we adhere to, and we try to be as creative as we can within those, within the guidelines. But I would say everybody appreciates some type of contrast or diversity in your program. When you can change things up, and show the audience, okay, my students can play in this style and they can play in this style and they can have this energy while playing and then they can have this type of energy while playing. It's appreciated by everybody, I believe, and so having that kind of common element in the programs is really where the fun is. I think in a program is that you're creating this narrative over a collection of pieces, and showing off and exploring different aspects of playing and sounds and styles and composers. So that's a big thing of what I try to attain. Of course, I often come across pieces that are above what I think would be suitable for the kids, but I try not to be a hero in that way, and I really sit and think, okay, with the time that I have,
Right.
what is going to be a challenge and a reach, but is it suitable and appropriate for the kids?
Sure. Okay, now talk to me about communication. So what are you doing overall with your communication, big picture?
Big picture, well, there's on one level you have professional within your campus. I would say, invest in that. So continue to, check in with your campus and let them know the journey that your kids are on, and
Right.
okay, they accomplished this and this is wonderful. And help out and be present when you can. I think colleagues do appreciate and they remember when you show up and you help out.
Right.
I know from my own experience, I was in this past year, quite demanding of the kids and their time. So I kept that in mind as I know getting ready for TME Honor Orchestra. I thought I've always felt it was important to communicate and be appreciative of sharing these kids, but it was even more urgent for me to do that because I had so many demands of them.
Right.
And I
It's
do
always a
think
give
it
and
really-
take too. I always feel like if I'm going to take time away for this, then I have to be aware of that. And there's a time that it's kind of an unwritten agreement or unsaid agreement with my principal that after I get done with UIL time, that once we get into STAR testing and all that stuff going on, I really, really limit all the time I'm taking out of classes because they gave me that time. It's a give and take. Now, some teachers don't always remember that, but I've tried.
Well, I think that also shows that you are invested in having an understanding of what the master calendar or what
Right.
you're not just in your own world saying, well, it's not that I don't think STAR testing is unimportant, it's that I don't have any idea and I never try to see what else is going on around the school. Now I know oftentimes our campuses nowadays are just stretched to the nth degree as far as activities and students, but making an effort to understand what is going on around the campus. So yeah, I do think that makes having that positive, give and take is really important. And be interested that they have lives, that they have other skills. I might have a first violinist section leader who's also very serious about gymnastics or horse riding, and even that player who's in the middle or the back of the section. I still want them to track with us, and I still want them to be a part of the group and continue, regardless of their other interests. And as far as communication with the families, I think every teacher has a different perspective on this. Like I do email, I do a webpage, I do all kinds of different things. I find they really love information delivered to their inbox. It's quite time consuming, of course, but I do think in any event, especially in transitions, if you're a middle school, that first year of middle school, or that first year of high school, they want to get a sense of who the teacher is and how personable they are and how much they care. And I think when you take the time to do things like that, it at least opens up the channel of communication, so they feel like they can approach you or call you or email you.
Right. Now, you've just come off in February of performing Honor Orchestra, is that correct?
Full Honor Orchestra.
Yes. And congratulations.
Thank
How
you.
proud you must be of your students' achievements and
Yes.
the hard work of you and your staff. That's
Yes.
really special.
Thank you.
So now talk to me about Rehearsal Strategies. what do you do on a day-to-day basis in a rehearsal for a honor orchestra for that level of a kind of a group? How do you make that happen?
First of all, there is such a very a lot of detailed planning when it comes to the music, and not just, oh, I'm studying the score very intensely for myself, because that's obviously what we've learned in our training to do, and it's important to show up and the kids expect you to be able to have that thorough knowledge of the score. But the preparation as a string teacher, in particular for a string teacher, having all those bowings and fingerings that are going to convey the appropriate phrasing that you like, that are going to help you get through the rehearsal. The kids know what to expect. They can see it on their paper. Maybe a bowing doesn't work out, maybe a finger doesn't work out, but at least I prepared it and I have a point of reference and can say, okay, well, let me go back to that and we'll assess it later. So there's a level of planning that goes into it. So we're all on a baseline, we're all matching, and generally mostly everything, because you've actually gone through and specific to every part dedicated some time to say, okay, this is how it would work best on your instrument. It might not be the most obvious way, but it's the most musical way to do this. But there's always a conversation. It's a great place to start, though. It is time consuming to do that, but I feel like once you dig into the rehearsal, then you also can get some interaction from the kids. Like if they have a question, it can be a specific question for a measure or bowing, and not just this guesswork that tends to happen. Because sometimes I talk to teachers and they say, well, I like to do those afterwards when I see what would work. But for me, it's worked really well because then I just have a great place to start.
Right. So you're saying trying to do more ahead of time and then tweak if you need to, rather than let's see what we have and then make it. And you feel like that works best for you?
I do. I think it works well. I mean, I always felt like I think we all sometimes feel like there's, if we feel like we have all the time in the world, we'll take all that time in a rehearsal.
Right.
But if you can guide yourself and say, okay, I want to work on these specific items, then you know where to dig in. I think as far as other strategies we use, one thing that, especially in the full orchestra setting, is it's so much fun for the kids to show up and they're hearing these combinations and textures and colors that they haven't heard before. And it's thrilling. It kind of goes back to that feeling of when they're in 6th grade or 5th grade or whenever they're starting their instrument and they're so excited to pick up this instrument that, as well as very foreign, it's very exciting and it's new. So you see that same glimmer in the full orchestra setting. And really going with that. So if there's a section with the viola, it might oftentimes be paired with the horn, and taking the time to, guide them through writing, okay, pick oboe or flute that you're gonna write as a reminder that that's what you're listening for, and you're pairing up that voicing. I feel like it also helps us when it comes to performing in a different venue. And that's definitely something that we got a lot of opportunities to do. Of course, my students had never showed up to Lila Cockrell and played a concert there, so I try to implement some trying to plan for that. So part of showing up to a new concert hall that you've never played in, it's going to feel and sound different. But if you can go back to, okay, this is the spot where I can listen for this, or I can check in with Miss Horvitz about how we're lining up or the balance, I think that helps us bring confidence into the concert setting, because we want to prepare the kids as precisely as we can. But there's always the unexpected at a performance. Right. So I think you have to rehearse what to do when those unexpected. And I think what's so great about music is there's so much nonverbal that we can read those and we can pull through And I try to include that in rehearsal, and that's part of why I like to do a lot of the lining up and, okay, how important is your part on a scale of 1 to 10? And them really understanding what their role is, especially when you have so many voices all at once.
Well, and that leads me into my next topic I wanted to ask you about, is trying to make everything student-centered. That's a big thing with T-Test that we're working on right now. Everything's working on trying to get everything more in there. And I think music, I feel like all of education is always a little bit behind what we're already doing, and we already have that down. But how do you make your rehearsals and your program student-centered, more than what you were just saying?
I do. Well, leaders in particular section leaders play a big role in this, or even people who are like and I think many directors do in the stream setting, we oftentimes put, those stronger players on the outside that are really organized with their bowing and their posture and their attentiveness, someone who can kind of broadcast for that section and be an anchor for the rest of that row to kind of match with. So there's always this interaction between the kids of, let me help you out on this part, and they're really able to manage a lot of that. I would say I try to create opportunities for students to do that. So in the rehearsal, I might actually carve out that 30 seconds or 45 seconds for them to turn to their stand partner or their duo or their trio and work on something or give some feedback or watch them play it, just to have more eyes and more connection in that way.
So you really base a lot of that on your leadership and try to get your kids to help each other.
I do, and I think, that's what I see, because oftentimes I see in before school or after school or during our advisory study time is I see people pairing up, or I see players matching up and saying, oh, you know what, I have that section down. I can show that shifting passage, moving into different positions. I can show you really quickly how to do that. And they'll take care of it. And it's exciting for them, especially the more advanced techniques. You'll have kids who just are starting to do some vibrato. And you have, the more experienced, advanced students who, have maybe a very flourishing vibrato and and can play with no ease. They really enjoy teaching and sharing their knowledge with others.
It makes them feel special.
It makes them feel very special, and those are the types of things that your middle of the section, your back of the section, those are the things that they really want to do. So if they have that encouragement and if they have that kind of guidance from their peers, it's amazing what they get. Kids are really amazing. They don't need to have been playing for years and years to be able to do remarkable things. And also, as far as being student-centered, I think just the small things, like smiling for your students, it makes you really appreciate them being there, and they understand that you're there for them. And taking opportunities to recognize when they treat each other in an encouraging way, or when the students can recognize the success of other students, that it doesn't always just come from me, it also comes from them. So there's it's student-centered in that, I am there to serve them, but at the same way, they are also there to serve each other and to help each other.
Sure.
But I think there's so many subtle things that you can do. Not, they don't have to be planned. You don't have to have, extensive peer mentoring program in order to make it student-centered. I might create a special little tutorial for a part for a student, or I might give, especially with the middle and beginner orchestras, I might have a student who comes up to me and says, oh, I heard this piece that someone's playing, can I please have a copy of it?
Yeah.
And taking the time to do that, it really is such an important investment into keeping them hooked.
Yeah, there's so many times when we get thinking about our other priorities and forget to just do the little things for those kids, always holding that a high priority. Well, now you were on our orchestra, full orchestra, so that requires a lot of collaboration, especially with the wind and percussion teachers. So talk to me about how you made that work.
Well, this past year was our 5th year of having full orchestra, and we started out preparing for the spring UIL. So that was, and at that point I was getting a lot of input from colleagues as far as what to pick. I, of course, would always confer with my colleagues and say, how does this look? Range-wise, rhythm, just instrumentation, does this look like a good fit? But what we found is, of course, there's so many conversations about rehearsal language and approach, and that is so much fun, because when we're in rehearsal, there might be just a moment where, our band directors might raise their hand and say, can I get in there and help with this? And we welcome that. And I think the students really appreciate that, we have this expertise to bring to this, but we're also learning from each other at the same time that we're leading. And I do think students respond to that and appreciate that we're developing knowledge as we go.
Sure. It's probably very fun for them to see that.
Yes, yeah. It is very fun. We would do, and then what we started doing is we would have kind of get the kids interested in the full orchestra, and we take them to the Domain in Austin and have like an outside nice mall, and we'd play some carols and a couple tunes and just kind of get them excited about the opportunity, get them thinking about it. And then by the time the spring happened, then we had students just really pumped to get into that music. And then it just built from there. As my knowledge of what was out there literature-wise increased and improved, that I would say there was a definite correlation between our musical product and just everything, all the music I was digging into.
Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's really nice to, I don't have orchestra in my district, and it's really frustrating. I'd love for that to be a thing, and it's coming in the future, but it's really nice to get to talk just kind of across the aisle, if you will.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that I feel like we're doing the same thing, but sometimes we've developed in different ways, music and choir and band, and it's really neat to, I love having my choir director come in, and I've done that for years, and get to talk with me. So it's great to get to talk and hear your priorities, and I hope to have you back on the program again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for you guys watching Beyond the Clef, and we'll see you again later.